There's certain conversations that just flow, and this week's episode is one of those. We sit down with our good friend Casey Bard, who is the CEO and founder of Tacticalory Seasoning Company. We find out how a Venn diagram took him from the supplement industry into the world of sauces and seasonings. This is the No Excuse to Miss podcast. Welcome to the No Excuse to Miss podcast. I am your host, Scott Volkwartson. And this week, we have a good friend of mine on. He is the CEO and founder of Tacticalory Seasoning Company. Welcome to the show, Casey Bard. How are you doing, my man?
What's up, brother? Doing well, man. Enjoying January in upstate New York.
Oh, we're in the middle of supposed to be getting anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of snow. So,
yeah, if you listen to the internet, it's anywhere between 3 and 3 feet, right? Because we're kind of doing the same thing. We have a big trip planned next week with the family. We're taking a little mini vacation to doing a little lock-in at Great Wolf Lodge, and it's like we were going to travel on Monday, and that storm's going to hit us Monday. And so we changed all our plans, and it was like, oh my God, it's going to be, you guys have never seen snow like this. Just kidding, 3 to 5 inches. So I don't look forward to getting trapped in a fucking interstate somewhere. So we're gonna rip out a day early and hopefully get there.
I'm hoping it's all. I leave Monday for the SHOT Show, so I'm hoping all this is your way by then. And
yeah, it should be
no issues with travel.
But dude, everything's going awesome. Just trying to take it day by day while watching the week by week and the month by month and the quarter by quarter and the year by year and the decade by, trying to take it day by day, but just keeping that visual out a little further is like, that's what I do every day, So it's been a wild one.
Well, let's sort of jump into it here. Well, first, before we do that,
I was going to say, I think I'm probably your first liberal Democrat from upstate New York ever on your podcast, right? Just
if you were, yes, you would be.
Just to get that out of the way.
That's kind of our core audience is
I figured
liberal Democrat. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of like I'm like the trophy guest here. Just the partisan. Yeah.
Well, in some ways you are a trophy guest because we've only been trying to do this since June. And it's now January 14th. So
man, they both start with J, so we're good there.
Well, and let's jump into that a little bit because we talked by text yesterday or a couple days ago, and
we've actually talked by text. We've talked by text about that about once every 2 weeks since June.
Yes, and finally this week you're like, hey, I got some time. Let's do it. I need to be much better about taking advantage of opportunities when they come.
Yeah.
But I also get it from the business side. Sometimes it's hard to take an hour or two when you have so many daily tasks that you have to check off your list.
There's a country dude. There's a musician named Zach Bryan, and in one of his songs he says it's like you keep waiting for tomorrow till tomorrow never comes, and it's like in the recent couple of weeks we've lost some pretty key people in the community. One that really affected me recently was Judd Logan, and I don't know, I don't want to. We were friends. He was a great supporter of my brand and me as a person. And there's some things that I just noticed that it's like, holy shit, man! Like none of this is like you keep waiting on till tomorrow, and dude, it may never come. So it's like, I'm not trying to get doom and gloom, 3 minutes into the podcast, but fuck, man, like I can do better, and that's kind of the epiphany I had over the last couple of weeks. And some of the things I've been doing personally and professionally, it's like, you can't table these things forever. And somebody like you, man, I respect the hell out of you. You're a great friend. You're a confidant. We've had some great conversations personally, professionally, and everything in between. And it's like to just keep tabling these things. It doesn't make sense. It's like I'm pouring gas on shit that doesn't matter, and letting that fire that does fucking matter, that's in your backyard, just let it burn, assuming it. I haven't checked on it for a minute. I'm sure it's still burning. Can't do that anymore, man. And it's something. This isn't like this massive. It's just do better, man. You know, it was like this morning, get up, go to the gym. I'd much rather just go back to bed, but I got up and went to the gym. You've been doing an amazing job of that. And it's been something that I've been feeding off of. So if you ever feel like you shouldn't share that photo of you training, keep doing it. Cause it's like, I think it just shows like somebody as busy as you know, with as much shit going on as you do, you're just still doing it. That all relates back to kind of that epiphany. I'm like, dude, why, you know, I have an hour. What am I going to do? Sit on TikTok for an hour? Like I have an hour. I can talk to you guys, and I would love to. Like that's the thing. I want to talk to you guys.
But I think we all can get caught in that trap of we keep ourselves busy. You know, maybe not necessarily productive, but we keep ourselves busy, so we feel like at the end of the day, you know, we got everything on our checklist done or taken care of. But then something I've realized over the last couple of years is, yes, I got those to do things done, but have I really made the most of the day, like moving the business forward or moving myself forward, where there's, you know, sometimes some of those to do things other people can do and even do them better. But there's certain things that like when it comes to the Tactic Calories brand, there's certain things that only Casey can do. Mm-hmm. You know, like when it comes to us interviewing you and finding out all about it, you know, that's not something you can necessarily delegate to somebody else. Mm-hmm. That has to come from you. And it's taken me a long time to kind of get to that point.
Yeah. I, you know, it's something that's like you go back and forth between delegation and, you know, maybe even lack thereof in a lot of cases for me. You know, a little bit about me, if you haven't heard, or, you know, if you guys don't know who I am, which I assume you don't.
Yeah, let's jump into this. Kind of digress a little bit and get into your background.
Yeah. How far do we want to go? I've lived 3 really cool lives now, and I'm in the middle of my 3rd one, right? So first life was in the motocross industry. I started working with my aunt and uncle's business when I was 12. And it's like, man, I know a couple 12-year-olds, and I'm not sure I would leave them the key to a business right now. But that's what happened to me when I was 12. I was managing, you know, my family's motocross, you know, accessory business. So we specialized in ATVs, and at the time, my little cousin was, you know, turning 1, 2, 3 years old, and they got him on this quad, and he's the best in the world at racing motocross on a 4-wheeler. And that's all I did basically my teens. That was my whole life. Everything as deep as, you know, these people that are in this, like the rimfire, like these little niches, right? There's guns, and then there's competitive shooting, and then there's accuracy and speed, and then there's whatever, there's rimfire, then there's pistol, and then there's age groups, and then there's, you know, all those different things like that. I was that deep into motocross. So that was like my teens. Paid my way through, you know, having like the nicest truck in the parking lot. You know, my parents never helped me, and it's amazing. You know, they would take care of me if I needed it. I always had a roof over my head and food, but if I wanted a truck, I had to go fucking buy a truck. You know, my dad's paying his truck right now. So, you know, paid my way through college selling factory takeoff parts from 4-wheelers. People would bring their brand new, you know, off the showroom floor Honda to us. We would tear all the factory parts off, put racing accessories on it, and then they didn't want these stock shocks. I mean, it's like a stock Glock trigger. Like, who, you just throw it in the garbage, right? Like, what are we going to do with this? So I found a way where I would separate each part and sell it on eBay. Made thousands and thousands of dollars. Didn't have to have a real job through college. Took some student loans, but they're all done now. So that was cool. So that entrepreneurial spirit I kind of gained through a family business a lot. Like, I think that's why you and I, you know, click so well, is because we grew up in family businesses, right? Second life was basically my 20s. I, you know, did 10 to 11 years in the supplement game. We grew from 5 people. I was in pretty early, got a job right out of college. I studied nutrition and marketing. So I got a job marketing nutrition, did that all my 20s. We grew to be the biggest third-party brand in, you know, big box retail. So GNC, Vitamin Shop, we were the biggest. That company, without really getting to, you know, going down that, If you worked out in the early 2000s, you either loved us or hated us, but you had a stance on us. So it was a crazy life, man. I'm not going to get too far down that rabbit hole, but I saw and learned and was put to the fire a few times when I didn't realize. I saw all the positives in my family business, and I saw some pretty fucking big negatives in my 20s. So when it came down to say, what's your next life? Because this company no longer exists. One of those, when you get caught at the house party and the cop says, this is your opportunity, carry on, go. That's literally what happened to me. Get the fuck out of here. I don't want to see you again. Luckily they dumped my vodka and they let me run, and that's where Tacticalories came from. It's like, I'm not going to say it's like a choir boy, but it was like, I'm done with those, high liability, we're dealing with FDA and shit where we don't get to make these decisions. I'm sure I'm probably striking some chords with you and some people in your industry where there is no, I can follow the rules. There is no fucking rule book. You tell me to follow the rules that aren't written. I don't want to do that anymore. So I said, who is Casey? Who's 30-year-old Casey? And I was more into, brisket than I was into creatine at this point. So I said, let me take a little bit on this on the side. I had done some nutrition consultation over the years in the tactical space because I loved it. I did my field work at an HIV clinic. I didn't like that. I had these guys with, letters on their shirts, running and gunning and teaching them how to not eat corn dogs at noon before they go to a hit. I'm like, yikes, man. So I taught those guys, and I had this awesome thing going, but it was like, how do I make money that doesn't involve me, teaching, Tom, Jim, and Bob how to eat right? I mean, it ran out of, I was running out of steam. So I needed a consumer product. Had a couple of rubs that I've been making because of my powerlifting and strongman background. We'd mix up some rubs, and we had a couple recipes, and that's like the 5-minute, how we got here. As I said, let me take all this marketing knowledge that I've known since I was 12. I built my family's website when I was 13 on Microsoft front page. I had no idea. Figured out how to hook a cart up to it. I still don't know how to do that, but I figured it out when I was 13. This is all old school shit. You know what I mean? So it's just been this crazy, like, I've never worked a real job, never had a real boss, never had to punch in. So now the reason I say all that stuff is that now when, I'm the boss of a growing company, I've never had, when I say I've never had a strong leader, I've never had, there's never been this overarching entity over me that's essentially told me this is what I have to do. It's always been like, oh shit, yeah, thanks for making us a website, Casey. Oh shit. Hey, with the supplement industry, it was like, hey, thanks for growing our Facebook account. This is before there was pages or anything. And we had 1 million like followers on through these pages I built because I just did it. So now, like, circa 2022 now, I mean, that's been my challenge, is like, how do I educate a shipping, like an entry level box packer? Because I have no idea how to teach somebody how to delegate, like how to do this. So that's the 3 to 4 minute, where we're at today. Tacticalories has been my full-time gig for 3 years in April. So here, we're kind of coming in on 3 years full-time. Seems like a lifetime.
When you decided to go, leave your prior corporate gig and go into the Tacticalories business, was there a lot of convincing of your wife that you had to do, or is she on all in?
That's a really good
because
question.
Obviously,
yeah.
I was just going to say, because I remember when my dad took that leap from a guaranteed, week to week paycheck into all of a sudden, he had done the firearm stuff on the side as a hobby, but when it finally became his only income, I remember even as a kid, the decisions, the conversations that mom and dad had to have. I didn't fully understand them at the time because I was like 9 years old, but I just remember the stress and everything they went through to give up the security of that paycheck.
What's crazy is that, like, I don't think I had that the way that a lot of other people do, because a lot of the successful people I knew and the people that lived the life that I wanted to live were the ones steering the ship. And because I told you, a few seconds ago that I've never really had the leader, if I competed in a sport, it wasn't a team sport. I didn't really ever do, it was like wrestling, powerlifting, strongman, motocross. It doesn't matter what anybody else does. It's all up to you. And I really didn't have that. No, even, my wife's family has some wild entrepreneurial backgrounds. I learned, there's something about that old school entrepreneur that a lot of people dismiss. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
yeah,
not last generation, like 2 generations ago, that didn't have a lot of the shortcuts that we have. That had to figure this shit out before they could just Google, before they could DuckDuckGo how to do this. So it's my grandfather-in-law was really high up in mailing systems. He had basically started this whole, when you're a small business and you need to mail your own packages and you don't feel like going and standing in line at the post office. That was a novel idea in the 80s, right? So imagine being like an insurance broker that's growing. Imagine needing to have that, that opportunity to be able to mail out all these letters or ship these Christmas gifts. How do you do that? He basically, brought that technology and was able to if you're a mid-sized business, he could install these systems where you could buy your own postage in-house. So with him, man, I was able to basically consult with him at that break point where it wasn't necessarily my decision to leave that job because I was making a ton of money. I was really comfortable. I was able to train twice a day because it was kind of like my job. I was in the fitness industry. So like, dude, stay in shape. You know what I mean? I don't care what brand of in shape you want to be. If you want to be a power lifter, cool, just be good at it. Share your stuff on social media, be present. To be able to talk to him and say like, what, what bank, I mean, what the fuck? Oh, I need a bank account. I remember my first 30 grand I invested into the company. And I started with $500, but like the first $30,000 in charges that I had where I started to kind of have, bigger, basically product cost I had to pay for. It was all on a personal credit card, and all of a sudden I talked to a tax guy and he's like, oh, fuck. So you're saying this $30,000 revolving, this isn't personal debt? I'm like, no, man, it's my business. They're like, okay, so how do we transfer $30,000? So how do you start day one with a $30,000 debt? How do you build back out? How do you climb out of it? I was able to talk to my grandfather-in-law there, the mail guy, about, how he did it before there was all these tips and tricks. And he, I learned a lot from him. And it was awesome. We used to have dinner with him every Thursday, and he'd ask me a lot of questions that don't get answered on the Gary Vee podcasts that we all listen to. A lot of real things, a lot of like when you think of these guys that actually did the fucking work. You see those. It's not the easy questions, it's the hard questions. So to answer your question with my wife, it was like I heard this Matt Vincent. I heard Matt Vincent say this. He and I both lost our jobs within like the same quarter. Okay. We've had very, very similar situations. We were making good money. We were comfortable. Everything's good. And then boom, luckily we had both had side businesses. And Matt Vincent said this. He said he walked out and looked at his wife and said, I just lost my job. And that's a big deal. You have a house, you have all this other stuff. Me, I have kids. Matt didn't have kids, but, and he goes, it's at that moment I realized I'm really fucking happy I started something on the side. The corporate entity, they'll try to keep you from doing that. Obviously, like I look now, like I kind of want all my attention to my guys going towards mine, not theirs. You know what I mean? It's a tough one. So he's like, I was really, really happy at that moment. This is Matt saying this. He's like, I'm really happy at that moment. I didn't say, I have an idea. I'm going to make t-shirts. Because I've been full-time for Tactic Calories for 3 years, but I just looked the other day, I registered the domain in 2015, so there's 3 years of like, I look back, I'm like, dude, it's like finding like hieroglyphics. I'm like, I don't remember. I wonder what the fuck they meant by that. But it was me. It's only 6 years ago, but planting those seeds early, like if you have that idea, buying a domain name, because now that I have a team, we had a team meeting the other day, 5 people, and we're like coming up with these ideas. I'm like, oh, let me see if the domain's free, because that actually is a cool idea. We'll search this domain, and it's been purchased since 2016 or something, and it's like when you have that idea, investing $10 into a domain name just for a little bit of IP, I mean, a domain name doesn't mean a ton, but it would sure suck if somebody else had Volquartsen firearms, huh?
And I think even just putting that, they always talk about putting ideas out in the universe, it kind of plants that seed in the back of your mind. I know like our mutual friend, Josh Smith, he had the idea for Montana Knife Company when he was like 19 or 20 years old. It didn't become a thing until, just last year or 2 years ago. So there's about a 20-year time span there that he just had this idea and never did anything with it. And you look where those guys are at now and how they're growing. But like you said, he just had that idea, and I don't know when he bought the domain to Montana Knife Company, but I know it was long before he launched the company.
Yeah, I just heard him talk about that on a podcast, and I'm like, fuck, man, that's such a good. I've said it a couple of times to people. I'm like, no, it's like we're waiting for permission, and a lot of times, like you see people waiting for permission to. At least for mine, I just see this. This is kind of my story. Is like, where, I went from. I've always had, and that's the thing is, I didn't dislike my job. You always hear the doom and gloom side. Like I went from this. I was an accountant at a HR company. I was tier B. No, mine was pretty cool, man. Every place dude, we were the biggest. So for me to lose that gig was kind of like, shit, who am I now? Because that's who I was. I was Casey at blank.
Yeah.
I would go into any fitness store. I mean, anybody who lifted weights, they'd be like, oh, cool. You work in like vitamins and supplements. I'm like, yeah, we do like, pre-workout product. And it's, we're the maker of blah. And they would be like, you're the reason I have my job. You're the reason I'm like these people, I had people like buying me dinner, buying me drinks. I had people like taking pictures with me because we made this supplement that changed their life. And then all of a sudden it's like gone. It's like, fuck, man, now what? So like, I realized that a lot of my friends were acquaintances, when I couldn't get them free pre-workout and protein, and like, it's like, kind of like, so that was a big change. And I saw kind of my friends and my true friends kind of sift to the top. And as I continue to change, it's like, I'm still seeing it, but my wife has always been on board. And this is one thing that a lot of people I don't hear this brought up very often. There's a couple dudes that are talking about it, and it's how important like my wife was to this. She's completely off radar. If you see, with our social media and our, any of our content, she's completely off radar. Finally talked her into an Instagram account like 6 months ago. She's posted like twice. Like that's the part that doesn't get talked about enough, is the comfort and security that my wife gave me. You never hear about that, like she has a good job. She's been working her ass off silently. It's not a cool job. It's not flashy, but when I made that decision to say, let's roll the dice, let's invest in Casey instead of, let me build somebody else's brand up for the 10th time and then lose everything and they go off in the sunset. Now, not all of them go off in the sunset. Some of them go off to, not see sunset for a while, but it's like I want to be in control. I can't be indebted to somebody else where I do all this effort. The anxiety taxation of, your daughter reading you a story and you're not there. You know what I mean? You're there,
Yeah.
You're physically sitting there, but you're thinking, what the fuck did I forget to do? Did I do that email? Fuck, Jimbo told me to do this and all that, where it's like, but what if I lose my job? What if I lose my job? What if I lose my job? Those, what's crazy, man? I've not worked for anybody else for 3 years. I still have, I call them aftershocks. I'm brushing my teeth on a random Wednesday morning, getting ready to go to a product release for my business that I've built for the last 5 years. And I'll be like, oh my God, don't I have a team meeting with my old company this morning? Like, did I forget to, like, the amount of anxiety that I had at that, like, dude. So those things, I don't mind accepting anxiety and challenges when they're due to me and due to my everything. This is, my story, my legacy, but fuck, dude, I'm out with like whole like fixing other people's mistakes in exchange for some dog treats. I'm done, dude. And I'm so like when you see the fact that you can make, in terms of like the money I bring in, it's not what I was making, but
Yeah.
the ability to kind of do what I want and to be able to just live my life, be here for my kids. We have a camp. You and I talk a lot on the weekends. We both have camps. That's such an important part of, I've they're going to turn 8 next week, or 4 days. They're going to turn 8. I have twins, boy, girl twins. And I always think of that, like, dude, like how lucky I am to be able to just have this like very modest, like it's a couple grand a year. You know what I mean? For this place that we can go, and they're facing this crazy technological world that we don't even know what it's going to be. And it's like, I think it's so important to like let them be amazing. You guys talked about tablets before we came on here, and the kids on the tablets, be good at that. Cause I think if the kids aren't good at tablets, like they're going to be left in the dust, dude.
Yeah. They're not going away.
They're not going away.
So,
but also making sure
that
we get them outside is the point I'm making there,
Yeah. When you go to your camp on the weekend, as a business owner, do you struggle with trying to compartmentalize those two things, like put the business aside for a couple of days so you can be present with the kids? Or are you pretty good at being able to do that? Because I know it, like as a business owner, there's really no such thing as like a vacation or completely disconnecting.
Well, when I came up with this idea, it was like, I legit, and people think this is like me, like a metaphor for like what I did. No, I legit drew out a Venn diagram of, and for the public education Western Pennsylvania kids like me, a Venn diagram is the two big circles where they intersect over a certain spot. Everybody knows that, right? So I legit wrote down like, what are some things I really, really like? And this is again circa 2015. I was like, I really like, guns, knives, and like flashlights that are too bright, and camouflage, and all this technical. I was really into that. I like it now. I'm still into it, but it's like I have other things I've going on. I was just balls deep into that whole tactical market. So it's like on the one side of the Venn diagram, I wrote everything I can possibly think of in there: words, phrases, concepts, people, places that are all revolved to that thing. Because I'm thinking like, what can I do on my own? Like, I have no idea. This is the question I hear 100 times from people that are, older than me, younger than me, more wealthy, less wealthy, black, white, purple, whatever. Like, I hear it from so many people, but what do I do? And I was like, dude, it just all of a sudden clicked for me, because I wrote that, one side was like this tactical thing. I'm writing like, every firearm manufacturer I can think of, every knife manufacturer, like what type of different types of knives, different. And on the other side, it's like, well, what else am I into? Well, I'm into like strength training. So I started that Venn diagram up here, or that's that portion. I started writing all the strength stuff I'm into, and down here I write, I'm into food. I like cooking, man. I'm pretty good at cooking. I've my, I cook for my family. I cook for friends. I cook at, all these different places. So I start writing, I have this like meal prep blog I was starting. And like part of that meal prep blog is I would kind of be like a dickhead when I talked about it. I would kind of just be like, this is how you should eat, idiot. Like I remember the one day writing like, if your job involves like, protecting other people, you should maybe skip the egg McFucket on the way to work type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's time to like bring your best. So I had this kind of like humor I was bringing to this blog. So when you do that Venn diagram of all those three things, I'm like, all these, I'm just trying these different words. I'm like tactical, protein, tactical, macro tactical is a cool name. Macro, all these different, and all of a sudden it was like tactical, CAL, calories, CAL, tacticalories. Huh. What could that be? Like tactical calorie, maybe in a tactical approach to how we do this. Okay, that's kind of an having a plan. Okay, that plays right into this. Oh my God, wow, planning and preparation, not necessarily paranoia. Oh yeah, this is kind of cool. Flavor, victory favors the prepared. What if a victory flavored the prepared? Like there's all these different things that these play on words, and that's kind of like my marketing background. So that's where that concept came from. And it's like, it's a big way of saying I love what I do. So when I go down to camp or where I'm, when I'm even on a business trip, like I enjoy what I do. Like these are my people, generally it's not like I'm making something I have no concept of, or I'm not a consumer of. I mean, this is, I make products that I use. I see that with you guys too. I mean, this is really what you do. I mean, you really enjoy doing that. That's, I can't imagine trying to do like content creation or being at these expos or events or just, rubbing elbows with these people that you dislike or that are so different from you. Man, it would put up so many roadblocks, unnecessary roadblocks.
And that brings up a great point, and something else I was going to talk about is like all the events that you go and do. I know like obviously we met at Winter Strong, and I always tell the story that we met because we were the smart people that didn't go in the freezing water to learn how to rewarm.
I remember that. It's like, because we had seen each other a little bit, and I'm like, I need to remember to go talk to, and both of our friends were like, you guys need to meet. Whenever it happens. But yeah, I remember you and I stand there like, nope.
Yeah.
Like, we're from where it's actually cold, and we know that this isn't fun.
Yes. And, my thing is the first way to get rewarm is not get cold in the first place. So
I love that. Preparation tips by Scott right there.
But so, obviously we met there, but I know you do like Winter Strong, Summer Strong, and these other events. Like I think you've done some of the Total Archery Challenge maybe.
Yeah, we've done some. I haven't done TAC yet. Both of ours that we were going to do got canceled last year.
Okay.
But we do archery shoots. We've done some firearm shoots and some kind of like lift, run, shoot events.
Which is, as you say that, you're talking about how you wanted to incorporate what you do into your other hobbies and what you're interested in. Mm-hmm. So, one, how critical are these events to like growing tacticalories? And then secondly, how do these same events help like you grow as a person? Because I know personally, like, we'll be going to Winter Strong here in a couple of weeks. I love bringing our firearms, getting everybody to shoot them. But then even just the personal connections and the people I meet and like almost the mental reset that those couple days provides me is far and away more than anything that it's going to help our business.
What I find with events is it's like, generally, this is a pretty big generalization, but leave Winter Strong out of it because it's a little bit of a different situation, but maybe the best example of it, but it's not open to the public, which a lot of these expos aren't either. But it takes like that initial, education that takes up that initial like energy, takes that out of it. So like when you go to a big outdoor show, you can go right into how venison tastes better with this on it. And it's like, you don't have to explain like, so on that way, it basically kind of takes out the cliche conversation at first at these events. I'll say these events have not been critical to the growth of tacticalories. For the first 2 years, this was all hidden from my employer. So the growth had to happen without a face, without a name, without really a point of contact. I wasn't able to essentially leave and go to these events that even if I thought that they were potentially beneficial, like I didn't want to be caught that I had this side gig because it was literally written I was not allowed to have a side gig. My first trip down to, actually, it's funny is that like on the way to Winter Strong 1, I found out that I wasn't going to be going to prison. I found out in Charlotte, North Carolina, Cabela's, because I was 3/4 of the way down there and it looked like it was going to be more rainy than I had planned. And there's a Cabela's right off the exit in Charlotte, like right after Charlotte, right south of Charlotte. And I got a phone call letting me know that I was, no longer needed in the conversation. So Winter Strong's been a bigger event for me than maybe a lot of people realize, because it was like, okay, I get my life back. Let's really do this. It's basically been my, yearly, like I still get to do this year. As of today, I'm still getting to be, somebody's allowing me to do this. I'm not saying it's going to happen forever because shit, dude, Shit's crazy. So Winter Strong's been special. Admittedly, we try to stay out of the mush of barbecue events. I'm not like a lot of those guys. I find that a lot with a lot of the situations with firearms I find myself in. We're a little different than what they, the masses want me to be on some of these things. And I'll find that a lot with barbecue too. So, we kind of just stay out of that mix a little bit. We've found a really cool coasting, we found a really cool group of individuals online. We did events, growing up, but direct to consumer sales has always been my thing. Like building a list, building a community online that we can call on with, this is our next invention. This is our next, residual product launches where we've yet to lie to anybody about this stuff. When we say we're going to do something and we keep them happy, it was up until this year, we had never had a return. We had 40,000 orders with no returns, 0. So people would reach out like, hey, what's your return policy? I'm like, oh, you can help me write one. Why? Because what's going on? So that's been, so, events are a different case. Now, with that being said, moving forward, 2022, I just brought on a buddy of mine, Jason Ellsworth, that has been somebody that's been a buddy of mine for 3, 4, 5 years. I've seen him around the community. He was in the alcohol space, craft beer space, and he's also this mountain man. I mean, he's like, lives in a log cabin down in the Finger Lakes, hunts 300 days a year type of deal, and just it ended up just kind of coming. It was like one of those things when you see team, when you hear that, like building a team and building a, when that person just has to be on your team. It's like, I texted you with some questions about emotions and emotional decisions and stuff. Right. And it's like, this was one of those ones I just knew had to happen. So we brought him on. He's incredible. He has an incredible experience in face-to-face communication, doing that, walking in stores and getting the stuff on the shelves. I mean, he's, so with that being said, having him be an outdoor guy.
To this point, everything you've been doing is online, correct?
Well, so that's a good question, because in the past, I've said 98% is direct to consumer, but when we actually ran the numbers at the end of the year, we're actually closer to 90% now, direct to consumer. So it's grown to be about 8 and change percent of our total business is reseller stuff and food service. If we wrap food service in there, if you take food service out, it's probably about half. Food service being like, we'll supply seasonings and sauces to restaurants, meal prep companies, food trucks, stuff like that understand a premium product and that they can charge 10 cents more for a burger and make it taste like this. It's incredible. But bringing Jason on, he's we brought him on as like a Tactic Calories Outdoors, brand manager, but man, he's really been blossoming as somebody that can help us with our resellers too. So he's been really taking on that today. But that's just something that positive vibe, that positive conversation, it can never hurt. And it's one of those things that, again, I started to talk about at the beginning, with like delegation and just trusting people. And it's tough when. And
I was just going to ask, so as you bring him on, we've talked about what you think he brings to the table, mm-hmm. but how difficult is it for you to turn over certain roles or power to him when this is your baby?
Yeah. I'm unfortunately, I find myself to be like eternally pessimistic on certain things. It's like I'm conservative in that, where I'd rather keep my $100 as opposed to trying to win $150 type of deal. So that's kind of like, I always see, especially because of my, I'm a real live redheaded stepchild here. So I've seen, I've seen it, so it's not to get doom and gloom, but it's like, man, I've seen some shitty stuff happen with resellers. I've seen the worst, when it comes to resellers. You get in deep real quick, and you're under contract, homeboy. That's what happens. So getting out
I
of
can
that.
speak to that personally. We've had situations in our past, fortunately it's been 15 plus years ago, where we thought we had this great deal going on and we were selling lots of product. I mean, So from the outside, it looked phenomenal. At the end of the year, when we started looking at what the actual profit was and how much work we had put into it, it couldn't have been a worse deal on our end. But we thought, somewhat, not to say we thought we made it, but we thought that this was going to be the greatest thing ever. And I think our ego or pride or whatever got in the way of actually looking at the true numbers.
Well, there's a way that people have done it. There's like this vision of success, these accolades that people, put up on, it's like, it happens in everything, fitness, diet, all these, any hobby, like there's these accolades and like the way that people have done it. And I found it's not always the way, I don't want to say it's not ever the way, but man, the getting into retail question is something that I've heard more than almost any question. We have a big chain. Well, I'm not going to bring them up, but we have a big chain of grocery in our area that is really well known as being a really, good place to be sold. It's always like it's a regional, and I hear it all the time. Aren't you in blah? And it's like, no. Do you realize what it takes to make that? Like that would have killed, I wouldn't be here, especially through COVID. 2019 to 2020, we grew 400% in our direct to consumer, which is a whole.
And we talked about some of the challenges that you had, even sourcing, sourcing about everything.
Everything, just money, just being able to pay for that is like, dude, it's crazy. I had a banker tell me if my business were called like a nail salon and I was doing what I was doing, they would give me $1 million credit line today. But they walk into my business and say, this is all you have? Like, this is all you need to do the numbers you're doing? And then they kind of give me like this is all you're doing? They don't understand it because I don't, we've figured out, and that's again, back to the whole, doing things that nobody else, doing things our way in the way that not necessarily the way that everybody else has ever always done it. It's not all like unicorns. I mean, it's been challenging to say like, what if we don't do retail? Like, what if we like actively don't, like, what if we keep this as a direct to consumer? Like, there's a lot of challenges with that.
Because you're in a competitive, I don't think that goes without saying what a competitive field you're in or industry.
I think it's the first industry. It's like frankincense and myrrh shit here. You know what I mean? Like,
because I walked into one of our local outdoor stores and I was thinking of you as I just started looking at the shelf with all the different seasonings and sauces and I'm like,
yikes.
I wonder what goes into getting this shelf space.
Yeah.
And
why, right? So like right now we're able to control that. We're able to control our narrative. And the biggest thing, and your marketing guys are going to love me for saying this, is that I just said 90% is direct to consumer. The biggest thing that I see as a business owner is being 90% direct to consumer, 91%. 91% of those customers I can chat with today if I wanted to. We generally don't piss these people off. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but it's like, I own a Volquartsen, rifle, and I just don't feel like many people are gonna be too pissed off about having this. Like I'm pretty happy for what it is, and I like being that person. We see that a lot of our friends that we talk about, these companies like a Sorinex, like a Montana Knife Company, like Eberly Stock Packs, these friends that these mutual friends of ours. You invest a little bit more. Yes. Yep. Yes, it is more. Yes, sir. It's a little bit. Yep. Got it. Yes, it is more, right? These questions. Yep. It is. Yep. Costs a little bit more. But what you get is this whole experience in this community and this guarantee. And that's like what I wrote. That's what I wrote with that, with the catalog that we did for the Volquartsen Summit rifle that we got. It's like, being able to purchase this rifle and take my kids out to shoot their first firearm. Like, I'm not going to not pay a little bit more for what I'm getting. That keeping them happy and being able to then go back and have 91% of everybody who's ever purchased from me at like my beck and call to say, if you like X, you might also like Y. That's why we're in business right now. I have friends that have made a lot of money. I have friends that do that. I have a friend that just exited his company. They were doing $1 million a month on Amazon in revenue. Off the top, Amazon fees, 30-40%. Their return rate on a good product, they had a good product. Their return rate some months were like 10% gets returned. You have to give that money back. That's on you. Plus there's a fee on top of the return because they had to pay to have it transported back somewhere. So it's just one of those deals. It's like, I don't know where we would be if we would have taken the pure reseller route. I really don't know. I don't know if we would have been able to be where we're at right now.
And do you think it's valuable that because you have that direct line to all your consumers, that you're able to also get their feedback, hear their experiences, and know kind of what they're looking for?
Yeah, because like think of when you return something to a big box store. Sometimes I'll give them feedback. Like I'll return something to Lowe's. I'm like, oh man, this hammer doesn't quite do what it said it meant to do because of this. Like, look, it doesn't do that, right? That's why I don't want it. That never ever makes it. I mean, that dude doesn't care.
No, it stops right there.
Where for us, like right now, like I still manage 90% of the emails that come through. At least I view it because it's like I have to use this stuff. We don't get many, concerns right now. The biggest thing we get is like broken bottles. This time of year, all shipping services that it just becomes crazy. I mean, I'm sure you deal with it too. Just losing packages, breaking packages. I mean, I don't know how they do it. We had a company, we had a reseller receive. He bought 2 cases of our teriyaki sauce and 23 out of 24 are broken when it got there. We pack them the same every time. There's 1/4-inch corrugated cardboard between each one. I spent the box itself cost $8 and they still broke them. I mean, they had to hit it with a fucking truck. And I mean, it's just what we deal with. I mean, these are so it's like, again, it's like that might not be I didn't do that. We did everything we needed to do. We pack it, we wrap each one individually. I mean, it takes me so much money and time to make this arrive there. That all is why I sell a $10 barbecue sauce, because that's like something. Sometimes we'll have people, they don't hear it. I was actually just telling the guys the other day, I'm like, it's been like 3 to 4 to 5 months since I heard anybody bitch about our price. It used to, pre-COVID, it was a big thing. I'd hear a bunch of these rednecks come on like, my favorite barbecue sauce is $1.10 at HEB. I'm like, I bet it is, buddy. Keep with it, I haven't heard that in a long time. I think that, I told you we grew 400% from 19 to 20, 20 to 21. We grew another 40% over 20. So we're still rolling that direction. And I think that just keeping people happy, not making a ton of mistakes on our end. We're doing the best we can. We're working with the best manufacturing partners we can possibly find, doing the best we can do to find all these different things. And just we can move fast because I don't have to answer to, I brought up HEB. That's not who I've been talking about, but I don't have to worry about, like, HEB right now is placing orders for Black Friday. I mean, I'm not, we don't, we're still trying to figure out what we're doing in February. You know what I mean? So, staying small and staying quick. I mean, it's what's allowed us to, just stay relevant through all this. I think there's a lot to that.
I think I completely agree with you because I know from, like, in our personal experience, there's a lot of times that being able to pivot without having to answer to a board or, typically it's my brother and myself.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to answer to a board or outside investors or anything when it comes to making a decision. And we've been part of some product launches with publicly traded companies where we were going to work and provide some parts for them. And like start to finish, that whole thing before launch probably took 4 or 5 years. And, it got to the point that the way we work, we're like, well, apparently it's never going to happen. It was a good learning experience.
Yeah.
And then out of the blue, we get a phone call and they're like, we're ready to launch. And I'm like, oh, I thought that project was dead. I haven't heard anything about it for years. But I do think, your ability to be able to pivot and keep your pulse on what your customers are saying by answering or at least viewing so many of your emails.
Yeah.
I think has to help, as well, because I assume if you're anything like me, you take it personal when somebody says something about your product.
Yeah. I've gotten better at that.
And I've had to learn to separate my emotion from it.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I threatened to fight one of my customers.
I've had to learn to, after I take the personal attack or take it personal, remove that part from it and say, okay, does this guy have a point?
Yeah.
Maybe it's bothering me because he's right.
I know. That's so funny you say that. That's there was a point where I think it's, your boy Andy, I think said at one time where he's like, if you're going to take all these positive, all the praise, if you're going to just bask in that and you're going to sit out there like a fucking, lizard sitting under the sun, you have to be able to take the negatives in that same, like a lizard, open your chest up and let it hit you,
Yes.
And I really think about, I don't know who said that. It was one of these, gurus. I think about that all the time. I'm like, when I read that, I'm like, oh, I immediately like put my, I'm ready to elbow him in the mouth. But I'm like, wait a minute. Like you said, like, fuck, no, I mean, I'd be pissed if my salsa jar came with the lid off of it too. It's a $10 bottle. When's the last time, Casey? When's the last time you paid $10 for a bottle of salsa? So what we typically do is it's like, okay, well, I understand I'd be pissed, but like just like a physical confrontation, like, I mean, I was, like, you probably, sometimes you do deserve it. It's just sometimes I don't. Sometimes some people I don't understand. Like a lot of times it's just like something else must be going on in this dude's life to be this mad about barbecue sauce. But do you need a friend, bro? I can help you. But we don't see that very often. And I try to stay on top of it and do the best we can. But we also like to cap that though. Like if anybody's listening from a business side, to cap that is you also have to know when to say no. And like you have to be able to say, this isn't fucking Kohl's, dude. Like the customer's always right. Not always. Like you also have to be able to set these boundaries. Like there has to be boundaries. Like you have to know when too much is too much. Last week, I found out that this family it's from one residence where they were scamming me through customer service issues. One of them found out that, I'll replace bottles, and your tens of millions of listeners right now are going to hear the same thing. Like if you email us and say we broke a bottle or a bottle got broken en route, we'll send you a new one. One of my shipping guys was like, I see this as a customer service inquiry a lot. Like, it's tough for us to track when it's a different email, a different phone number, it's just that one. But he's like, I had a friend from that town. So I always recognize Kenmore, New York. I always think of it. And like, we've seen it like 3 times this week. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. So basically they're getting getting 200% for their money. They're buying. And every time they're saying there's a broken, I'm like, dude, I eliminate them. We had a really good month of customer service. We had like 4 other inquiries we had like 20,000 orders. 4 people broke their bottles. If you take that idiot out of it. So I had to email him back. I was like, dude, you're not allowed to order from us anymore. Like, do not order from us. Your card's been blocked. Your IP's been blocked. If you do any more, we're going to contact law enforcement. You're a scammer, and they didn't, it's weird. They didn't reply to that email. It's weird.
And I think it's easy for us as business owners to get caught up in, because obviously the first thing a lot of times customers will say is, we'll see how you handle this. And I guess if I have to, I'll go, I don't want to have to leave a review here. I don't want to have to go to social media. But at some point, like you said, you have to draw the line, because you're either going to be scammed like you were in your case. And it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, there are customers that regardless of what you try to do, you're not going to make them happy, and we've tried certain times. It almost becomes a game. I'm like, I'm going to make this guy happy one way or the other. And then you have to throw in the towel and be like, okay, he's like you said, there might be something else going on that we're not going to.
Oh man, that's most likely the case. Right. So we had I remember a meeting with the team. We had 2,700 positive reviews in a row, 5-star. I'm like, that dude, that just looks so curated and so, perfect that I'm like, we kind of need to fuck up a little bit. It's like my tattoos. I got a couple. I was like, dude, I kind of wish I had more bad tattoos. I'm like, because my wife got a bad tattoo. I'm like, I'm kind of jealous. It's kind of like badass, Mine are all perfect and shit. I need to not be friends with my guys. I need to so it's like, I think there's merit to not only having a little bit of, grit to it, a little bit dirty. It's like, okay. Because I'll read those negative reviews and I'm like, I can usually kind of but there's also merit to opening that dialogue with your customers of saying shit happens. We all know that. I mean, from the best executing businesses, shit happens. It's how you take care of it. And that's the truth, man. I heard a review, this exact situation from, do you know Matt from Condition One?
Yes, I met him at the SHOT Show a couple years ago.
Great dude. I hate when people tell you who you should have on, but you should have him on. He's a great dude. Great product too. Very similar to ours. It's like a $5 bar, protein bar. I hate calling it a protein bar because protein bars suck. This is a meal replacement bar. And any food product that's backed by Rudy, you got to kind of listen to, So I've been eating them. I don't look like Rudy yet, but almost. yeah. We get so we're to the point where Rudy and I we get mistaken for each other quite a bit.
So at Winter Strong, you better make sure and keep your shirt on because we'll be able to tell Rudy's the one with the shirt off.
Yeah. Last year he had that hat on. Oh my God, it's so funny. He's a good dude. But he, I saw a situation where who was it? Somebody bought some bars from him, and they either got lost or got damaged in shipping. And the person sharing their story was like, it kind of sucked because these are expensive. I mean, they're it's like $50 a case for these meal bars.
Yeah.
And they got damaged in shipping, and I get it. And it's like, uh-oh. He goes, not only did they immediately answer my questions, but they also doubled the shipment. So he's like, it's like they turned it into this. So there's merit in opening those conversations, because I've always heard one of my mentors in marketing, sales and marketing, I worked for him for 10 years. And he always said that he's like, it's that silent majority that, you're only hearing that 5 to 10% of people that how often have you went to a website and written a negative review? Does Scott Volkorson have time to do that right now? I mean, very I'll talk shit in person maybe, but for me to stop and write a fucking Yelp review, man, you better you spilt coffee on my kids or something,
And the big thing that I've always noticed and always tried to be aware of is, more than likely you and I and most people aren't going to go to a website and write a review, but in person, word of mouth, if you have a bad experience with somebody or a good experience, you're going to talk about it all day long.
Yeah.
And, and if you come to me and say, hey, this is an excellent, I'll use Condition One, you got to try these. I value your opinion. I'm going to place an order and try it.
So, and you don't see those aren't,
and you don't,
this is something. So Mr. Hiroho and I talk a lot, he and I worked together for 8 years, and one of my good buddies, he's a co-founder of Montana Knife Company, horrible taste in footwear, but great guy. It's a little inside joke. He'll laugh at that. He and I talk a lot about, man, I lost my train of thought because I thought about his boots. Shit.
We were talking about word of mouth advertising.
Yeah. So we were talking about it because he and I I consider him one of the dudes that I reach out to if I need some marketing advice, and he does the same to me. We have these we have different brains when it comes to like this marketing. We're that's what we do, knives and ketchup. That's just a venue for which we express our marketing and advertising and sales ideas, right? So we often talk about being in this world that we happen to be in. This plays into the conversation that we're talking about here, where we can see like there's a metric on 5-star reviews or 1-star reviews or 3-star reviews. There's a metric on there. That's never, up until 5 years ago, there wasn't a thing, There's a metric on how many podcast downloads you get. So when you set a goal for your podcast download, even though you're just putting information out into the ecosystem of the world, out into the stratosphere, which is what the fucking goal should be, do good things for, to people, build good products and try to have a good business, spread good information. That's the goal. But because we have the opportunity to, kill ourselves with this sword disguised as metrics, it changes the way that people react to certain situations. The case in point is, he and I are both talking about running billboards and local like radio station advertising. Everybody else that we're seeing in our industries, because he and I are both in these old school industries, like a lot of like the big, knife making is coming back around. I'm not going to talk like I know anything about it, but there's a resurgence in knife making. You're seeing it everywhere. That space that he's in, where he's like consumer, maybe it's still small batch, but they're doing hundreds of knives per batch. It's not forging a single knife. I don't know what you would call that, but that's coming back around. You'll see these guys like, I have a business here. I'm selling, direct to consumer knives. I should try Facebook advertising for the first time. What I need a YouTube channel, because they see like the successful people that they look at. That's what they're doing. And it's like, they're forgetting about all the old stuff, and they tend to, it's shiny object syndrome is what I always call it, and it's like they die at this metric thing. Well, I only have 2,300 followers. Like, motherfucker, like the best, like, do you think Josh Smith at 20 cared about how many Facebook followers he had? No, he was just doing the work. And like, that's one thing that he and I, Brandon, go back and forth a lot, is like finding that now those venues are opening up where you can buy. Nobody knows the metrics of the exact demo of drivers that drove past that Montana Knife Company billboard. Nobody fucking cares, because they're continuing to grow. Like, why are we stuck on the 1-star reviews and the 5-star reviews? The only reason that we're stuck on them is because we're seeing them in our face, and people are. So I think that you'll see a lot of like the weak companies and like these companies that are just kind of panicking, like, they're going to be stuck to that stuff. I try to not get stuck to. Now, what's awesome is that it's in my favor. It's probably easy for me to say because we have so many positive. If it started to turn the other way, I definitely would want to. But in the same way that if I was like, man, I've been hearing around town, a lot of people aren't happy with my stuff. I got to change it. So you just have to be careful of dying on that sword, man. Just because we have it doesn't mean we need to die on it. Like, what's the cost per acquisition of every car that drives by that billboard? That information isn't, so doing things for like a bigger purpose is like what we try to do at our company, is like less about cost per click, cost per acquisition, CPA, all these different things. Try to not worry as much about that. Are we growing as a company? Do we grow 400% a year? Yeah. Okay. Once we got that 400%, now it's a real number. Now it's a real business. It's like revenue I can be like proud of, because that's what everybody else says is a good number. And then we grow again. I'm like, okay, just keep doing good things. Like, just keep not pissing grandmas off.
Well, I think that's so important because, like we've talked about internally at our company, especially with how shadow banned we are when it comes to Facebook ads or Instagram ads or whatever it might be. But the one thing that's never going to go away is the people and word of mouth. And like you said, it's the hardest to measure. It's the hardest to put a metric on. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't matter what the platform is. That's never going away. Mm-hmm.
How do you guys handle that? It's something that I've helped a couple small firearms companies with some marketing ideas, and it's usually like, yikes, I'm always interested to see how you guys handle that, because like, I hate the phrase shadow ban because like people dismiss it, but go try to find Montana Knife Company on Instagram right now.
Well, and we encounter that because, we've done events and people say, where can I find you on Instagram?
Yeah.
And I've had to watch them type the entire thing into Instagram and hit search to be able to locate it.
It has to be exact. Like there has to be like the S on firearms.
Yes. At certain times it has to be Volkortson_firearms with the S before it'll pop up.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is,
and I see that for a lot of my friends, and I'm like, man, I'm pretty lucky where, my first couple products had, firearms on them. It was like my first product, it was called Assault and Pepper, and it had like a 1911 with it's like a fork gun thing.
Yeah.
And I remember early getting like my first strike, like early at Facebook ads, and being like, shit, I didn't think a cartoon illustration of a fork gun would offend enough people in 2018. So I went back at him. I said, hey guys, it's a drawing of like we have a gun emoji, but I can't do that. They're like, oh no, it's not the gun, it's the word assault. I was like, oh, that's even worse. I'm like, oh my God, that's so much worse. Okay.
So we've recently had posts taken down from 2016.
Yeah.
Because they went back and reviewed them.
Yikes.
And, obviously this is something we talk a lot about. You ask how we approach it. It's easy to say, well, we're just not going to deal in that space. But the reality is we have to. So instead of us trying to use it as an excuse of not, we're like, okay, this is the game that's out there. We have to figure out how to play it. We have to figure out what we can do within the rules. And I know there's other platforms that they're trying to promote and push. But the thing that worries me about that is then essentially the way those have been set up, we're marketing into an echo chamber. So it's something we probably spend way too much time trying to talk about it internally. And it's one of the reasons that a lot of people in our industry end up using like ambassadors or influencers for good or bad or whatever they are. Yeah. People don't understand. We can't go take out an ad to hit X amount of people.
Yeah.
But we can work with this person that may have 1 million followers to get our brand out there.
It has to be like untraceable, untrackable. It's crazy.
And you have to be careful in the wording because if it looks like you're trying to sell it, that's why you see so many times on firearms accounts right in their profile, not for sale or we don't sell guns, whatever the wording is.
Like big, like,
yes,
like nationwide, like legacy brands. It's like,
yes,
even they're that afraid. Like they don't have the pull. It's crazy, man. Luckily we've, it's like, I'm still like a Second Amendment advocate. I'm a firearms advocate, but it's like, this is how my kids eat. So it's like, I hate to be like that, but it's like, if I don't have to, and then generally it's also like, I have to start some of my early posts, it's like I'm making it like gun sexual just to do it. And that's not me either. We had a picture where I thought it was a cool idea to like have like I had like a SIG 1911, like sitting beside and it's like, when do I just have a gun laying around? You know what I mean? Like I generally, like, I don't believe in that either. Like I think that, having a firearm on you, great idea. Generally, if I'm outside or even in my home, like around my home, there's a firearm around. I know exactly where it's at. It's generally not lying in the center of my table. You know what I mean? So I see a lot of these things. It's like, it doesn't fucking make sense, man.
And that's something we've talked about is, when we put our firearms into the hands of certain people, there's only so many ways that it makes sense for them to show them.
Yep.
Like you said, they're not out at a restaurant, where like if it's a watch or a hat, whatever, you can show that as you're out a night on the town or out eating, whatever. You're not going to sit in a restaurant and have your EDC sitting right in the middle of the table, where you can show it.
But people do it because it's like, well, Gary Vee said I should be posting 11 times a day. So it's a lot to deal. I got to figure out how to show this, my friend the other day just sent me this like tactical kind of high speed gear company. He's like, have you ever ordered from these guys? And I've heard of them. It's like one of these like made up words, it's like 5 letters. That's like, I don't know. what is that? I've seen them. They look cool color of green and black that they have. I'm obsessed with the colors too. I get it. But like I went to their site, and like the third image down was a dude in like basically like a looked like a fucking velour sweatsuit with like some little like 380 carry pistol, and he's like in the middle of a stride of a run, like an aggressive sprint, one hand up like this, like protecting his face, other hand is in his pouch pocket pulling this 380 or like little like pocket gun out. And I just took that screenshot and I sent it back to my buddy. I was like, I don't find myself in that situation very often, so I'm not sure I need to buy their velour sweatsuit in OD green from them. But he's like, yeah, I saw that picture too. I thought it was kind of bizarre. Like it's so weird, like how we've, and as more and more companies, which it's a positive that more and more companies are coming to the Second Amendment side or pro freedom, which is a weird thing that we have to say now. Like that's kind of a bigger market. Like you're going to see that, man. I saw a big archery company had a similar situation like that where they, it's like archery safety 101. I forget which one it was. I don't really necessarily want to call them out, but it was like archery safety number 1 is like, dude, broadheads are pretty dangerous, right? And the photos showed a dude with like an arrow nocked with a broadhead on, like jumping over it looked like a ranch fence. But Jesus Christ, I mean, dude, like even like hunter's education number 1, the same thing with a firearm. Like I was like, even my dad, these like, the old school, like, my dad learned from Vietnam guys. So a lot of stuff is really wrong. We don't have to shoot like this. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that they do wrong, but one of the things they did right, I remember even as a kid, 10, 11 years old, like learning how to hunt with my dad. If we encountered like, big, rocks or like, especially the fence thing, it's like, we're going to render this firearm useless while we do this. Just, it's almost like they didn't want to get shot. But it's like, I see those situations and it's like, it's doing it for the gram. Dude, what exactly are you doing? And I don't think, I don't know. I guess there's an argument. Is anybody held morally obligated to like be this like beneficiary of a lifestyle or of a, what I'm trying to say there? Like, do we have an obligation to be, Tim Kennedy posted up yesterday. What's his, Elba? They're talking about being, James Bond. What's his name?
I saw that.
I forget his name, but I forget his first name. He's an actor, right? And I don't watch movies, so like I have no idea. But Tim Kennedy put like number 1, make sure that we educate Hollywood actors on trigger discipline, and number 2, hire. It's like Idris Elba or something. I don't know. I don't watch movies at all. So, but like, are we obligated to make sure? Because then the picture he shared, the dude's finger is on like he's literally on the finger on the trigger in this promo image. And it's like, where are we obligated to like not share that? Or are we obligated to bring it up and talk about it? I don't know. I'm kind of out of it. The biggest thing I get yelled at right now is like not paying homage to the barbecue gods of like the Midwest. Like I had some dude. I actually use the phrase in my Instagram profile now. I put bastardizing barbecue since 2017. And because I generally don't give, like, I don't care. Like, I think it's cool. I like the history, but like, I'm just going to do what tastes good and looks good. Because he said, because I called, I forget what it was. It's because we did pork belly burnt ends, and burnt ends are supposed to be beef, not pork. And burnt ends are supposed to be end clippings of brisket instead of, I took a whole pork belly. Have you ever had pork belly burnt ends?
I don't think so.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, we need to change that first of all, but second of all, like you can basically turn anything into burnt ends by just cooking it down and putting sugar all over it. And this guy told me I was, that I'm bastardizing barbecue because I'm not paying I'm not paying homage to, Jim Smith from the 1938 Kansas City barbecue. But I'm like, so I still love it. I trademark.
And don't you think at some point you have to do what not everybody else is doing to separate yourself.
Exactly. Right. I was just like, hey,
I mean, because if you do exactly what everybody else does, the other companies are going to have more money, more PR,
yeah.
a bigger machine to push the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
How are you ever supposed to separate yourself by just copying what's already been done?
Yeah.
So
you guys do a good job of that. It's different.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm not just
as do you. And that's one thing I know, like we always talk about, like your marketing, the names you come up with for your various seasonings and sauces.
Mm-hmm.
The artwork. I know Chad, who's our director of marketing, is a huge fan of the artwork you put into it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that's cool.
And I noticed it, but never to the level that I do now after he started bringing up like the details that you put into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
It's a wild one.
I got one final question, but before we do that, because I don't want to keep you all day, because I do know you're busy.
Yeah.
Is the first question is going to be easy. We were talking about snowstorms earlier, but we're not too far out from the grilling season kicking off again. Where's the best place that people can find your products? Because they are amazing. As you know, they've made me into a good barbecuer, and I am not.
Yeah. Our goal is just giving the best product to the people, putting the best, so they can put their best foot forward. Best place to get it, tacticalories.com. So it's the word tactical and the word calories blended together, Tacticalories. And if you were to pick something up, it's easy. If you have no idea what you're doing, go to bundles and look for the bundled, like we have one that's called like the Flavor Cult bundle packs. It's kind of, we put them together. Like if you're buying it for yourself, look for something you like to eat, and we will give you 6 products that will make that experience better. If it's for somebody else, we have a Tex-Mex, we have, steak and veggies, we have a, hot shit, it's just kind of, pre vetted products for each individual, interest. So,
and they are amazing. I will speak to that.
Man. Thank you.
So last question is, and I try to ask this to all our guests, but I always believe that people are where they are now because of some pivotal point that has happened in their life. Even at the time, it may have been the worst thing that ever happened, may have been the best thing. But there's kind of like that one pivot point or tipping point that has redirected or guided your life and got you to where you are now. Can you think of anything like that?
A lot of people live in fear. I still have a lot of fear, right? But one thing that eliminating fear has allowed me to really make some, Hail Mary style decisions that have expedited the process of my business and my life outside the business too. I lost my mom. She died when she was 44. So I think it's 11 years this year. And, I just remember it's like, I gotta, if you get to pick, I would pick this way 100 times over. I get a phone call. Hey, you got to come home. Things aren't good. I lived an hour away. I was at college, drove home to, the news. And I'm standing at the hospital with my younger brother. And it just came to me. I said, dude, we're fucking free. As traumatic and challenging as that day, what we just saw the worst. Like we're in hell right now. We're on our way back. Like it doesn't get worse than this. You know what I mean? So that day just changed my life, where it's like, I don't fear another man. I don't fear another human the way that I did before that day. She had been ill, but not, I had no idea. It caught me completely off guard, rocked my world. Knowing that you don't have to live in fear because you've seen, you've walked through it, changed my life. And I don't know if I portray that enough. I don't know if nobody needs to know that, but I don't have the fear that a lot of people do, where it's like throwing myself into situations and, not to say that I'm not calculated and I don't try to make the best decision. That was the case until, 8 years ago in 4 days, I had kids, and I went, fuck, there's the chink in the armor. You know what I mean? Like, I thought I just saw the worst thing ever. Now I have kids. Now it's like, my God, listen, if I was ever in a survival situation, I'd rather not have my kids, like with me, because that is such a liability. I just saw the worst thing I thought was ever going to happen to me. Then I had kids, and I said, oh, this is exponentially more, this is what life is now. So still though, having trying to find a positive in my mom passing. I know we didn't talk about that at all, and it's fine, but finding a positive in these things. I talked about Judd Logan passing. I talked about us going through a lot of death recently, and a lot of death for me. Death has been a part of my life for too long. It's something I try to find the positive in, and it's living today, not waiting for fucking tomorrow, and living with like, what can Dale over there do to me that I haven't already been through? Nothing. Like, those words, even dude, he could be so mad about his firearm that doesn't work. What the fuck does that matter in the grand scheme of things? Let me just fix it. Let me do the best I can to make this the best situation. That's where I'm at. So that was very pivotal to me.
Wow. And I think that's such a powerful place to be. A lot of people talk about it, and it's almost, become in vogue to post about it and do all that.
What but about having no fear around, like,
having no fear, or, you got to live today. But I think the number of people that truly can live that way versus the people that just want to talk about it or pretend that that's how they're living.
Mm-hmm.
I think I guess what I'm trying to say is, once you get to that place that you got to, it's an extremely powerful and probably almost like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders
in a weird way.
Right. In a weird way. I don't want to say like your mom passing
mm-hmm.
was this weight off your shoulders, but that mental burden that we put on ourselves of, fear of this or fear
mm-hmm.
of that. Like I've heard people say that when they rank it, fear of public speaking can be worse than the fear of death for certain people. Yeah. And then when you look at it from the grand scheme of things of losing your mom compared to what are people in an audience or going to say if I say the wrong thing,
uh-huh.
It seems almost silly to that point that's what we worry about.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, we're programmed that way, right? It's tough to like go against our wiring like that, but and sometimes I have to actually bring myself into the realm of, my wife does a good job of that. Like, yeah, but this is real life, and this is how society works. And you do have to make an appointment every once in a while. You do have to, it's like not completely rogue or feral, but yeah, I mean, that's the truth, man. I mean, obviously there's some caveats to that, but there's just not a ton that especially with words, there's not a ton that can really do much to me there. Not that I won't consider it and keep moving forward, but it's like, it's almost paying homage and honor to my mom. But
yes,
it's the truth. It's bizarre. I'm glad you asked that question, because it's that's I didn't anticipate the question either, so that's not a preloaded answer. That's I think about it a lot, and now it's just putting things into place. There's that old like 90s country song. What the fuck? Who? Like Tracy Lawrence or something. It's I'm not afraid of dying. It's the thought of being dead. It's propped me up beside the jukebox when I die. I want to go to heaven, or I want to go to heaven, but I don't want to go tonight. But he says that it's like, it's not the fear of dying. It's the thought of being dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, here I am quoting like fucking Shania Twain lyrics here. Think about that stuff a lot though, man, because it's been around me. It's been a part of my life. Death has been a part of my life. And that's kind of a really good way to conclude all this is like, dude, I mean, either way, you die doing something you dislike and you're dead. Doesn't matter anyway, but trying to leave a little bit of a legacy, a little bit of something, investing in myself so that when the time comes, I mean, right now my son's goal is to pack boxes for Tacticalories. That's what he wants to do when he gets older. So I thought that's kind of interesting. My daughter's interested in drawing labels for us, so it's crazy to see. And you being, generationally into it, that's probably pretty interesting to hear that from me, right? So
It's really interesting, and it makes that whole thing come full circle. That when you're able to talk about that with your kids,
uh-huh.
and they want to be a part of it, and it's something you're passionate about, so you can talk to them about it, and it's something that you've built, so it's not, like your prior job that they may not have been near as interested in,
Mm-hmm.
and they probably understand more than when you do have to travel for work or you do have to put in long hours.
Oh yeah, they're generally. I mean, they've been a part of it. We actually had a situation. I'm sorry to keep going, but it's like we had a situation last year. We got bound up. We were a little bit late on our biggest release of the year is our turkey brine kits, right? And we were a little bit behind on it, and it was like we just had to have the whole family over to like put stickers on and do this and this, and I had my daughter over there, and she's at the time she's 6 years old, and she's putting stickers on my box for me, and it's like I remember taking like pictures for Instagram and being like, it's a family deal, man. Like we're all doing what we can here. And a few of them, it was funny because we had these stickers on the boxes, and a few of them she's starting to get a little loose with. She's a master of her craft now. She's putting them on sideways. They're 45-degree angles. I'm like, that box cost me $2.25, sweetheart. But so I posted that picture on Instagram, and I was like, chief box sticker manager, Chloe here is, so if you get one that's crooked, you're welcome. You know what I mean? So they've been a big part of it. They love it. One of their favorite things to do is to come to the shop and mess with my employees and play pranks on them and shoot bottle rockets at them while they're trying to pack boxes and do things. So it's one of their favorite things. So trying to keep it a positive, man, trying to show that. And then when we get to live the life that we want to live and to the best of our ability, it's not easy, but this is why we can do what we can do,
Well, and I know, like I said, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but that brings me back to when I was a kid, watching my grandfather package up parts for my dad,
Uh-huh.
and just the amount of pride that he took into it. I mean, you would have thought we were wrapping, $50,000 diamonds that couldn't be damaged during shipping, and it may have been a set of rubber grips.
Uh-huh.
But I was really young, but I'll never forget the amount of detail and pride he took into wrapping every single set of grips, because that was one of our first aftermarket products that Dad made. And that has stuck with me, one for two different reasons. One, that even though it was just a small set of rubber grips, to him it was everything because he knew what it meant to my dad because it was one of his first products. But then two, just watching the amount of pride that he put into it, has stuck with me for, he's been gone since I was 18 years old, but I still remember it.
Yeah. Did you see those cutting boards that my dad made?
Yes.
So same way. He made like the first batch, I think it was like 35, 40 of them. And it's so funny because like he shipped it. He's like, what people, what feedback did you get? It's so funny because we had, he's trying to make another batch now. He's rebuilding his whole shop to like do this because they're pretty dope. We had a guy contact us like 2 weeks before Christmas and say, hey, my father-in-law, retired Navy SEAL, like law enforcement, blah, blah. I mean, like it had this crazy thing. He's like, and all he wants is one of those fucking cutting boards and he can't get one. And like, is there anything you can, he's like, I'm trying not to like pull strings, but I kind of am pulling strings here. Like, can we? So I called my dad. I'm like, hey, do you have like one that's like 3/4 done that you could just wrap one up? Because we've been trying to get a batch done so that we can do a batch release, And that stuff takes so much effort. He goes, yeah, I got one here, so I told him the story. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll take care of it. He's like made it custom for this dude. So he's in Pennsylvania, 4 hours away. I'm in upstate New York, so we had to my dad finished it, brought it over to my aunt and uncle's 4-wheeler shop to ship it to my customer on behalf of me. Like a lot of things had to work to make this guy get a cutting board, this one cutting board special. It's so funny because my dad's like, hey, how do you like it? And I was like, I don't know. He didn't say. My dad's like crushed by it. He's like, what do you mean? Like, like I'm like, when you're dealing with that many humans, like, but the amount that went into it, and then this is if the gentleman hears this, it's not a bad thing. Please, like, I don't need to hear feedback. It was a sale. We're happy to do it, but I charged him full price. It's a so they see my dad's just like, oh okay. Well, I'm hopefully he's happy with it. You know what I mean? That's kind of one of those things too. He just, like, Dad, it's like he's selling 40 of his children. Oh, that one that had the brown, the whatever, black walnut down through the center. Whoever got that one, let me know, because that's a good. He remembers every single one. I'm sure there's probably a part like that with the custom firearms where it's like, they have no idea what went into this gun. Like, do you realize?
Well, we'll get pictures from customers that Dad built guns for back in the 80s, and I'll show it to him, and he can barely remember. He doesn't have any, for any medical reason. He has a horrible memory. He always has.
Yeah.
But he'll forget my name half the times, call me my brother's name. But you show him this gun that he built in the mid 80s, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I did this to that one," or "I remember that." And I'm like, "How do you remember that?"
Yeah, that's crazy. It's cool, man.
Interesting how they do that.
I love it. But that's our friend at Blood Origins there. He came up to me one day and he said, "There's a phrase that we use in South Africa that he's like, I see it with your product quite a bit." I'm like, "Oh yeah, what's that?" And he's like, "The GAF score." I'm like, "GAF score." I'm like, "Oh, what is this?" He goes, "Yeah, the give a fuck." He's like, "It's very, 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 very high for your." I'm like, "Thanks, man." So I think about that a lot too. Like, just trying to, everything we do, just try to just give a crap, give a little bit more craps. Now we're having that challenge. We're having that conversation with our kids about, Ninja Warrior practice that we're paying $100 a week for you to do. You need to give a little bit more, give a little bit more effort there, partner. So. Well, dude, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. This has been awesome.
I think we could do it once a week.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's too bad it took us, 6 or 7 months or whatever to find time for it to work.
I'm
but
sorry.
I'm glad you made the time, because it was well worth it.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So,
let me know if you ever want to do it again, man. I'd love to do it, and I'll see you in a couple weeks. You bringing a team down this year?
Yes, we are.
Jason's excited, man, because Jason's coming down with me, the gentleman I talked about. He's excited. He's like, what should I bring? I was like, dude, just energy. Bring your energy. It'll be a blast. So look forward to it.
I can't wait. I will see you in a couple of weeks, my man.
All right, dude. Thank you so much for having me on. If anybody needs anything, reach out.
Thank you. And thank you guys for listening. And as always, if you ever have any questions, hit us up at podcast@volkortson.com. Thank you.